I remember when he won it, he was rocking the lei, and just his speech. I think what really stuck with me was when he said he just wants to inspire the young poly athletes everywhere. And I may not be Polynesian, but being from Hawaii and growing up in that culture, that hit home for me in a big way. And
welcome back, or welcome to Y Option. I'm your host, Yogi Roth. Check us out at yoption.com. And want to just, again, start off by saying thank you. The support from so many of you via the internet, via our Substack page at yoption.com, via running into you at airports or media days has been off the charts. So thank you. So much gratitude for that. With that said, it's the week of the final set of media days. ACC Media Days has kicked off today. Big Ten Media Days will kick off tomorrow. And that's what today's conversation is all about. We got a conversation with Dillon Gabriel, presented by 76. We'll talk about here in a minute. But Jim Thornby, producer, co-founder of Y Option, man. What are you thinking about as Big Ten Media Days are about to kick off?
Well, two things. One, how you are going to adjust to all these new schools, but also how the four schools that will be going with you from the West Coast to Indianapolis and how they will adjust. Obviously, everybody does things a little bit different. So, just fitting into the mold of the procedures that media days all have to keep everybody on schedule and stuff like that. But I'm sure they'll be fine. But I'm curious your take with each one of those four schools. Once we actually start playing some football, and we're not talking about like how they do at media day, how you think they're going to fit in this first year. I mean, obviously starting with Oregon, because expectations for them are going to be through the roof with the amount of talent that they're bringing back.
Yeah, they're loaded. I had a chance to connect with Dan Lanning a couple days ago, and he talked about on paper it's the best roster he's had. And I think everybody would agree with that when you look at Dillon Gabriel and the variety of other new players that came in, or the players that just developed. I think they had 8 or 9 defensive linemen that were freshmen a year ago. Now they're second-year players. It's going to be fun to watch these guys coming off the edge. Like Mateo Uyunglele is one of those star players that I think can have a breakout year for the Ducks defensively. I think they fit in really well. Like I think there's something to every conference, yes, had a style of play, but that was also a relatively lazy take, I think, when you think that way around the country. Let's just start where we were in the Pac-12. Everybody thought it was air raid offenses because of all the elite quarterbacks that come out. But it's a way more physical league than I think people ever gave it credit for, especially last year when you looked at the way that a lot of teams ran the ball. Like remember UW, the way they ran the ball against Oregon in the Pac-12 title game. And that was the storyline versus their Heisman finalist, Michael Penix Jr., dealing all over the yard. So I think that's going to be fun to watch the four teams enter the Big Ten that are known for, kind of 3 yards in a cloud of dust. That's the lazy, probably historical take. I think when you dive into the teams within the league, Jim, which I've had to just in advance of the season as I'm going to join the Big Ten Network this fall, is yes, teams are physical. Yes, there's a different size and depth to a lot of the defensive fronts, but they also have a lot of talent, right? There's a diverse offenses in this league. So I can't wait to watch like Penn State. They get a new offensive coordinator. Shifts, motions. He came from Kansas a year ago. If you remember what the Jayhawks did the last couple of seasons, it's been pretty impressive offensively. So I'm excited. Think of Graham Harrell, former USC OC. Now he's at Purdue, and they led the Big Ten in conference play in rushing last year, running the air raid offense. So I don't think it's going to be the most physical league in the country and they only run the ball and that's it. I mean, that'll be a part of it when weather impacts the game. But overall, I think there's diversity of scheme. And I think that's what's going to give Oregon a big benefit, because I think teams are going to have to adjust to them as well. They're going to go with tempo. They're going to be physical. They bring, you could argue, the best quarterback in the league heading into this new league on their roster, and Dillon Gabriel, who's today's conversation. So I'm stoked to watch it. I've got the Ducks' first game of the season. Granted, it's not a conference game, but I'll be able to get up there for training camp and get up there for the first game against Idaho.
UW, they've got only 3 starters returning. They've got a new head coach, who we know very well, obviously. How is that all going to mix out there in Seattle. I mean, it's only three returning starters, but they also brought in some guys who were starters at elsewhere.
Yeah, I mean, talk about like behind the eight ball, right? Jedd Fisch takes the job. He's leaving a team that we probably thought would have been the favorite in the Big 12 as they enter that new league in Arizona if he had stayed and everything kind of remained in place, to getting to UW late. I think he got there and he said something like, there was like 30 guys in the portal when he showed up, right? So he had to recruit the players back. And I think he did a really nice job doing that. Their challenge is going to be in the offensive line. I'm going to be there. It'll be my first training camp stop August 2nd. Cannot wait to watch and see what Brennan Carroll, their offensive coordinator, offensive line coach, has done with some new players there that have come in via the portal. And I think by the time they get to midseason, they'll be a different team than the one we see early on. And it'll be fun early on. I mean, their schedule, I think, benefits them, but they do play the Apple Cup in September this year. And we all know what, the vitriol that rivalry already has. I think there's clearly some added elements to that when you look at how the Pac-12, the Big Ten departure, played itself out last August. So that'll be a must-see game for everybody in the country. But I'm a believer in Jedd Fisch. I know Arizona fans are frustrated in the way that he left, but I think both places and both people are probably in a better position when you look at Jedd Fisch now at UW, being a part of the Big Ten. You look at Brent Brennan at a fit at Arizona. Of course, he learned from the great Dick Tomey, big influence in him there. So UW, I don't think they're going to go out and win the league year one, but they have all the tools that you need to go win. They got the alumni base, they got the fan base, they got NIL, and they got a coach with a plan. So it won't happen immediately, but it'll be fun to watch the quarterback thing play out for them. They got a transfer there. They have a young, talented freshman there. So I don't know. I think it's going to be intriguing to watch through the first probably month and a half of the season of how that thing grows.
Ready, set. Use French fries to go. Yeah, oil from French fries. Turn yesterday's leftovers into today's fuel. More power, lower emissions. 76 renewable diesel fuels all the ways you go, go, go.
SC, obviously, all the headlines will be about no Caleb Williams this year. Miller Moss obviously played phenomenally in the bowl game. We'll see how that projects over the whole season. But obviously, the other side of the football is where the real questions are with that team, and bringing in a new defensive coordinator.
Yeah, look, storylines for days there. I mean, the one thing we're not going to do on this platform is scream and yell like I saw at SEC Media Days a week ago, which was childish at best. I think when I look at USC this year, I think there's a couple things. Let's just start with the QB, because that's how it always is there. I've always felt this from my time coaching there, Jim, that when you sign at USC as a quarterback, you're a household name. When you start, you're a Heisman candidate. That's just what the job is. We've got Miller Moss coming on this podcast later this week, and we're going to talk all about the pressures that he has to deal with within this role at USC, and I think it's one he's ready for. Very rarely do we see in college sports at all, let alone the quarterback position, guys sit and wait. And not only did he sit and wait, but when he got his shot, as you referenced in the Holiday Bowl, he threw a record 6 touchdowns in the game, absolutely balled out, probably scared other quarterbacks from transferring in. And that team, they love him. And we were with him and Deuce Robinson, and you hear them talk about one another. And you talk about Miller Moss and the gravitational pull that he has, and it's really impressive. I think also, and I've seen this before, you have as well, when you've got such a big-time star at quarterback, like Caleb Williams was, and all of the attention that garners, positive, also could be, challenging at times. I think when that star player departs, there's something that always happens. I remember seeing it with Jake Locker, with Andrew Luck, with Matt Barkley. Like when elite players leave a program, there's something where like the team gets even tighter after that star player leaves. Because I think they want to say, and it's not anything against any of those star quarterbacks, but I think they all want to say to themselves like, hey, it wasn't just one player. And I think there's a real unity that happens. That's happening now and has happened really since December of last year, when Caleb announced he wasn't going to play in the bowl game. I mean, in my opinion, for whatever it's worth, Jim, that was the best team football I watched USC play all season long. All season long. So I think there's something to that. And then defensively, like, they're getting so much vitriol, and I'm like, they flipped the majority of that defensive staff outside of a defensive line coach in Sean Nua, and they add in a dominant defensive coordinator, at least in his 1 year in college, in Denton Lynn, coming over from UCLA. They're bringing a former head coach onto the defensive staff, former defensive coordinator in the NFL onto that defensive staff. I mean, they've done everything that SC fans would have wanted. And it seems as though, like, the general public, at least in July, isn't giving them a shot. I'm going to give them a shot. I want to watch how this thing develops. Who are their stars on defense? That's a hard question. Is Anthony Lucas going to be the 5-star player that he was out of high school and be an All-American? I hope so. We'll find out. So there's some holes and some questions for sure. But I don't think they're going to go ahead and win the league this year. But I won't be shocked if they go out and beat LSU in week 1. They're going to score points. The defensive staff is upgraded. I think the personnel is probably a little bit better too. So it'll be a storyline that everyone will be tracking.
And then we'll go across town and talk about, a lot of changes, obviously, with Deshaun Foster taking over there for Chip Kelly. Chip still staying in the Big Ten. That's kind of weird to say. Is that staying when you're moving and whatever? But Chip will be in the Big Ten at Ohio State. But Deshaun, getting a fresh take on this team and how they're going to do.
I think both, Chip and Deshaun have had such great reverence for the Pac-10, Pac-12 based on playing and coaching in it. And it's been fun to hear them talk about that. Like, I don't see anybody who's departed, like, kind of, throwing stones at the league on their way out. I think everybody was sad that it happened. And they also turned the page, and there's excitement for Chip Kelly getting to just call plays and coach football versus have to do all the things that a head coach is responsible to do. And for Deshaun Foster, we've been around him a bunch in the offseason, spring ball, saw him last week. He's got this thing really organized. They're positioned well in the NIL world. Their team has really galvanized. They even added a new strength coach in the last couple of weeks. They had to do that after their former strength coach departed for another job in sport. And that team hasn't missed a beat, man. And I think people forget that this is a team that was winning 8 games pretty consistently the last few seasons. They bring back Ethan Garbers, who will be there at media days. Jay Toia is their defensive lineman who dipped into the portal, decided to come back. He's their star defensive player, probably their highest ranked player when you talk to NFL scouts. So I'm excited. Akaika Malloy returns. He's their defensive coordinator. And then Eric Bieniemy on offense. Like, you can't argue with the offenses that Coach Bieniemy has been around. Now he gets to run it here at UCLA. And they've got some explosive backs. I'm excited to see who they are on offense. I think there'll be a little throwback element of huddling up, handing the football off. How many plays they trying to run in a game? I don't know, but I'm really intrigued to watch. I think they'll probably surprise some people. Again, I don't think they'll win the Big Ten in year 1, but I don't think they go in there and win only 2 games. So I think all 4 teams that find their way into this new league, I actually think they make the league better. If you had this conversation 5 years ago, we probably would have agreed, and the Pac-12 was pretty down then. I don't know if 4 teams would have made the league better. Because other than Oregon, and you could even argue Oregon 5 years ago, at times they were thriving, but also they were struggling. It would have been a mixed bag. Now where I look at all 4 and I say you got a team that just went to the Natty. Yes, they got to replace majority of that team, but they're still a team with great reverence. Oregon might be the hottest team in America. They're kind of the sexy pick to go win the national championship. And then SC, they're always going to be top of mind. And UCLA, I think they make the league better. So that's why I'm excited to get out there and cover Big Ten Media Days. We'll be on set Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. My job is going to be just interviewing the head coaches, which you know me, man. I love that part of the philosophy and diving into what these teams are about, their makeups. So it'll be different for sure. I don't think it'll be as weird as Big 12 Media Day because it just seemed like it was so many random logos together. At least in the Big Ten, you've got 14 that have been around for a really long time, and now 4 new ones that at least have been connected for a really long time, and the ones coming from the Pac.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about you're just mostly going to talk to the coaches here. You're going to get maybe not on the air, but you're going to get a chance to talk to some of these players. But that's why it's kind of great that we got this interview with Dillon Gabriel back at Field 11. Get a chance to really spend some time with him there.
Well, I think Dillon Gabriel is an absolute star in college football. And I think what people will love learning on this conversation with Dillon Gabriel, the now Oregon quarterback, is his path to get to the Ducks. He came to the Elite 11 as a counselor. Every year we have 3 to 5 counselors who are all college football stars. Dillon Gabriel shows up, and as he met with the players, he talked to them about, hey, I didn't have this opportunity when I was in high school. Like, don't miss it. And as I watched him in different sessions at Elite 11, he didn't miss a moment, whether it was teachings from a coach, whether it was conversations with greats like Pete Carroll, who was there. He had so many questions. He was so curious. And I think the number one thing that I look at quarterbacks, of course, you have to be accurate. You have to be an elite competitor. But you have to be a seeker. And that means, are you trying to unearth a variety of questions around the craft, around the game, around your position? And Dillon Gabriel was that to a T. So I'm so excited for everybody to listen to this conversation. It's presented by our founding partner, 76. They go everywhere that you probably go. So if you're filling up your gas tank somewhere on the West Coast, make sure you stop at a 76. And I think Dillon Gabriel, like, he is gone, man. It started at Hawaii, and then he found his way to Central Florida. Then it was Oklahoma. Thought he was going to go to the NFL. Said, nope, the draft grade isn't what I wanted. So I'm going to go play another year. And now he's going to replace a Heisman finalist in Bo Nix and possibly take this Oregon program to another level under Dan Lanning with the most talented roster he has had. So here's our conversation with one of the top quarterbacks in America. If you agree with it or not, Vegas has him as one of those front runners to win the Heisman Trophy, and I can't wait to be around him here at Media Days starting tomorrow. So presented by 76, here's our conversation with Dillon Gabriel.
What are your drivers? Because you seem like a really driven guy just being around here at the Elite League Finals.
I just always have had an edge about me, and I say that meaning being competitive, wanting to win, loving what I do, and loving the people I'm around. And I think, just growing up in Hawaii, it's always meant more, whether it's the family aspect or just the simple way of living. We love the sport of football. We love doing it together. And, I think that's what I bring to the table with every, team I've been on is that aspect of family and being a competitive guy that came from a small island and trying to do it on the biggest stage.
You think back, I'm just imagining like Tim Chang or Tua and Marcus, yourself. There's lots of you guys that have had great success. Mackenzie, from where you grew up. Curiously, was it told to you that's how it was? That was the chip? Or was that just a way of life at that position coming from Hawaii?
I think naturally it's a way of life, being in the middle of the Pacific. We're away from a lot, and just whether it's under-recruited or just a different style of ball, that's just kind of how we were raised and grew up. But never let that be a limitation. We love the game and continue to grind. And I remember days when Tua would be on the field and Marcus and Mackenzie, Jordan Ta'amu, and I was a 12-year-old kid, not even knowing what was right in front of me. And I think naturally that competitiveness against one another kind of helped us out to play at this next level.
What's that community like? And when you chose to continue your collegiate career at Oregon, I got to imagine that reverberated a little bit more than maybe when you went to Oklahoma.
Yeah, I just remember growing up as a kid and seeing that spring game where Marcus took it 60 yards, and I remember telling my dad, I'm like, Dad, it's the white kid. And now we all know him as Marcus Mariota, but just to be able to rep the 8, play at Oregon, 10 years since Marcus has won the Heisman. I don't know. I'm a big believer in God winks and just being right where I'm at, where my feet are. I believe that I'm right where I need to be. So it's a big blessing. I don't take it for granted. And I know it's a huge responsibility. I looked up to Marcus and still do. And I know there's a kid, my age, back in the day looking up to me, and I just want to be a good role model and represent Hawaii the right way.
What's the story behind you getting the number? That doesn't happen that often.
Yeah, so I remember talking to Coach Lanning. I'm like, Coach, I think I want to wear 1. And he's like, what do you mean? And we don't have a number 8 here. And I was like, I know. Marcus is the guy I look up to. He's my role model. He's, of course, the Hawaii idol, right? And not being afraid of it, but just a respect aspect of, I got so much respect for him as a player, as a person, how he represents himself. I didn't want to ever, mess that up one bit. But then I flipped the switch, talked to Coach Lanning, and realized just what an opportunity to, kind of do the same thing that he did. And, who wouldn't want to rep the 8 and take on that challenge? That's part of playing ball and part of why I'm here. So
did you call him? Did you text him? I'm sure you guys communicate.
Yeah, so I texted him. I was going on a visit, and I gave him a text shortly after. I'm like, hey, I'm with Kenny Farr, the Oregon equipment guy. And I said, you cool if I rock the 8? I just wanted your blessing. And he said, no doubt. So
yeah, that's so good. I want to know where you were the night that Marcus won the Heisman. Because I was in New York, and watching his speech saying to myself, this is going to change the next decade in quarterback play at the high school level and how people view the position. Wondering how it landed on you, where you were.
Yeah, I was at my house, and it was around dinner time because they had the late, Eastern kick, we always call it, led the TV time. And I remember sitting there with my family, and it was Marcus. I remember when he won it. Yeah, he was rocking the lay, and just his speech. I think what really stuck with me was when he said he just wants to inspire the young poly athletes everywhere. And I may not be Polynesian, but being from Hawaii and growing up in that culture, that hit home for me in a big way. And obviously being right where I'm at Oregon, it's kind of cool, be able to see him speak at that level, at that podium, and then me being where he once was.
I think it's fascinating to think of your origin story, getting recruited, committing to West Point, to now, like, God willing, you might have the most starts in the history of college football by the end of this coming season. Have you ever tied like a red thread between those two? And if so, I'm curious what it looks like for you.
Yeah, I have. I think my journey has been unique. Of course, COVID had a part in it. NIL has had a part in it. Me redshirting and getting that extra, COVID year, so to speak. But I'm blessed. I'm very grateful, and I've always wanted to just maximize my opportunity. And a lot of people are growing up real fast, and I just think the time in college, the experience, not only on the field but off the field, is life changing, and a pivotal time to find who you really are. And I'm just maximizing that opportunity.
What have you learned most about yourself over the course of this journey?
I've learned nothing's as good as it seems, and nothing's as bad as it seems, and just keeping that even keel mentality, never getting too high, never getting too low. In my family, my dad specifically does a great job of that. But this journey is full of ups and downs, and I've been at the highest of highs, the lowest of lows. But through those experiences of both and everything in between, I've learned that nothing's as good as it seems, nothing's as bad as it seems. And continue just daily deposits, keep getting better and continue to grow and evolve. We're creatures of habit, and continue to create good habits so that, I can eventually one day go play in the NFL.
I remember talking to Bo on this very show, and he said, I didn't go to Oregon on a visit. I just went because I knew I had a chance to win. I knew the fan base that loved it. I knew the system was going to be one that would put him in a great position to achieve all of his dreams. You referenced you went on a visit. I'm curious, since you've been in Eugene, what has it been like? Like, you found your favorite spots, favorite place to eat, your favorite place to hang, or you just facility 24/7?
Yeah, definitely facility 24/7's got a little part in it. So Uber Eats has been my friend. But I love Sushi Pure. I love Sabai. Love just all the options you got in Oregon. But, I would just say that the facility is top notch, and I'm maximizing my resources. And Coach Landon always talks about it, living off the land. We got one of the best facilities in the country, so taking advantage of it. And, as a guy who's coming in for 1 year, I know that there's going to be a speed that I got to move at to learn really fast and connect with these guys. But, I think throughout the 6 months of, winter workouts, spring ball, headed into summer, we've taken full advantage of it, and I'm excited for what we got, coming up.
Perception of Dan Lanning, and then lessons learned around the reality of Dan Lanning and his DNA traits.
Perception, he's everything, that, I thought he'd be. And I think that speaks volume on who he is. What you see is what you get. And, everything he's talked about, the conversations we had from the beginning to now, he's delivered, and has been a man of his word. And I'm blessed to be coached by him. A genius when it comes to defenses, and a guy who's been around ball enough to know a bunch of offenses, and just having that perspective of him in whether it's in the QB room, our meetings we have individually, continue to ask, how we can get better as a team. So he values our opinions as players, and also is a great coach to be able to push us. So I got nothing but good things to say about him, and and that's truly because of his action.
I remember hearing about him when he was at Pitt, and then I met him when he was at Arizona State. And you meet guys, you're like, yeah, he's gonna be tracking. Like you could tell pretty quick, like that he was driven and driven by all the right things when it came to coaching. Like, at least in my eyes. Because for you, you're back here at the Elite 11. You're back here at the finals counselor. What have you tried to offer up this next generation of quarterbacks that are younger than you, right? Like, you're heading into year 6, they're heading into their senior year of high school. And how have you seen that message resonate over the course of your time here as a counselor?
Yeah, I think it's just my story. I think sharing that, it can be interpreted in any way. For each guy who's here, it can be bits and pieces that they love, or things that they're like, hey, I need to learn from this. And I think there's just power within that. Even hearing guys like Cade and Kaden, just hearing their stories, I take something from it. But more importantly, just being here, soaking it all up, because I didn't get this experience, and emphasizing that for them. They are in a elite crew of position that's very difficult to play, and just being able to accept that, but also learn as much as you can while you're here, because not everyone gets this experience.
I love it, man. All right, well, I'll see you week 1.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, wait, let's go, man.
Let's go.
It's the Afterglow. Jim Thornby, Yogi Roth. That was Dillon Gabriel. Every time after a conversation, Jim and I are going to pop on and talk about something we learned, something maybe we wish that we asked. Here we are, Big Ten Media Days, a day away. Dillon Gabriel is going to represent Oregon there. Jim, what'd you take away from this conversation?
I just think it's going to be a cool fit with them at Oregon. You brought up a couple times the Marcus Mariota factor there from being from Hawaii. Obviously, Marcus is about as beloved a figure up there as you can possibly get. And I think it's going to be cool to watch, just watch him do his thing. Like, you look at his statistics right now, and if he has a season similar to what Bo Nix had last year, he could rewrite the entire NCAA, the FBS record book. I mean, he'll be at the top of passing yards, passing touchdowns, all these statistics of all time. And that's just kind of blows your mind, especially nowadays where you're just not used to seeing, kids stay at a place for one time, at just one place for a long time. And you don't really have the same understanding of their compilation of statistics as you would as they were staying at one school the whole time. Because once all of a sudden you put, okay, here's the stats of UCF, here's the stats of Homeland, you can put it really starts to really jump out more, because now coming to Oregon and having this opportunity to be on an outstanding team.
Yeah, I'll say this, from being around him, I did their spring game this past April. He was a counselor, as we referenced in the Open, at the Elite 11. We did the sit down at the Elite 11. And as you observe him, to me, he's got this beautiful array of talents that I kind of net out as he's got the it factor. And by that, this is how I would define it, is when someone walks into the room, you can feel their presence, and he makes you better. That's him. I mean, he's got DQs, dude qualities for days. You want that type of guy in your huddle, in your locker room, he's that. He's just got an awareness, an emotional intelligence, having the capacity to deal with his thoughts and the thoughts of others with empathy at a really high rate. He reminds me a little bit of Tua Tagovailoa in terms of having this ability to connect to anybody, but also has an edge that, I saw Carson Palmer and Mark Sanchez have at times. And he's got this cool factor, like Liner. He just kind of can do a little bit of everything. Quick story about him is that at the Elite 11, we have this competition called the Rail Shot Challenge, which is trying to mimic the throw that Tua Tagovailoa threw a couple years ago to win the national championship game when he came in as a freshman at halftime. So it's kind of a rail shot down the left sideline. It's kind of a hole shot, in between the safety, behind the corner, and you have to throw it on rhythm. It's got to be on the face mask, and he did it along with all 20 Elite 11 quarterbacks. The counselors joined. Well, he just kept ripping it, phew, 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 every single time. Finds his way in the final 2, alongside another quarterback, but this quarterback was in high school, and they're going back and forth. The quarterback he was competing against is also someone from the island of Hawaii, which of course that's where Dillon grew up. And they go through one element of overtime, they both rip it. They go through the second time in overtime, they both rip it. And then come third OT, the quarterback in high school throws a dime. Dillon gets up there, we're thinking he's going to throw a dime again, and he just dirts it on purpose. And he does it because he's like, look, I don't need to go win this thing. I want to make sure I take care of my boy. But just like the capacity to do that and be thoughtful of others just stood out to me. And I'd imagine if we talk to Dan Lanning, which we will at Media Days later this week, like he's just got this awareness about how do I make the room right? How do I make everyone around me better? How do I continue to have the it factor? So I'm a huge fan of this young man. Can't wait to watch him thrive this season, Jim. I'm glad we got him in person too. That was pretty cool to watch that go down, and appreciate all of you listening in and watching it. And of course, our partner 76, they are our partner on all of these powerful conversations that we have. We got another one coming up in the back end of this week, another quarterback now in the Big Ten. You'll get used to it. I don't know when, but at some point we'll get used to it. From USC, Miller Moss, we did the same thing, had a long, detailed sit down with him about the role of playing quarterback for the Trojans. So thank you. Make sure you share it, subscribe, yoption.com, tell a friend, and give us feedback. Let us know what you like, what you don't like, where we could grow, where we can continue to thrive, hopefully for you, and we will not slow down as training camps are right around the corner. All right, much love. Stay safe. Peace.